Vice President just met with Pope Francis on Easter Sunday. They had a brief 15-minute meeting, we're told, exchanged Easter greetings, as you said. The Pope gave him 3 chocolate Easter eggs for his 3 children. The meeting, though, was just between the Vice President and Pope Francis. The Vice President telling him that he knows that he hasn't been feeling well, but he was grateful that he took the time to meet with him. And it was just a brief exchange of views, we were told, an unannounced visit between Vance and the Pope. Vance was there in Rome over the weekend, visiting with officials, with his family, and then he met with the Pope briefly. Vance himself is fairly new to Catholicism in 2019, so he has called himself a baby Catholic as he was learning the religion, and it seemed as though he took this very seriously, this meeting with the Pope on Sunday. He also tweeted this morning, and I believe we have a post of that, of what Vance had to say as he travels now over to India. He said, "I just learned of the passing of Pope Francis. My heart goes out to the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him. I was happy to see him yesterday, though he was obviously very ill, but I'll always remember him for the below homily he gave in the very early days of COVID. It was really quite beautiful. May God rest his soul." We're also seeing the White House official Twitter account weighing in this morning, saying, "Rest in peace, Pope Francis." And we have yet to hear from President Trump himself. I'm sure we will hear from him very soon as he generally wakes up. They're getting ready for the White House Easter egg roll this morning with hundreds of children from across the country coming to the White House to celebrate the holiday. As you mentioned, the Pope himself passing at the end of this holy time, considered the holiest of times for Catholics. And the Pope himself has met with several presidents throughout the years. We know he met with President Trump back in 2017. The president at the time, President Trump, said that, quote, he's something, he said, as he talked about that visit and meeting with the Pope. We also know that he's met with President Joe Biden. Biden was actually expected to visit with Pope Francis just before he left office in January, but he had to cancel that trip. He was set to leave just after former President Jimmy Carter's funeral, and he canceled it because of those wildfires that were happening in Los Angeles at the time. And we also know that former President Barack Obama also met with Pope Francis back in 2015 when he came here. I was here covering his address to Congress. It was a huge moment here in Washington as he came to the Catholic Church here in Washington, D.C. He was in the Pope Mobile. I remember seeing that. And that image comes to mind as we're talking about this, Markie. Just an incredible time here in Washington to see his visit at that time, meeting with then Speaker John Boehner, who he said prayed over him. And then shortly after, he resigned from that position, feeling as though he kind of met everything he wanted to do, including meeting the Pope himself. So a lot of political moments with this Pope throughout Washington history, and certainly a moment that Washington will mark today as we see the reaction continuing to pour in, Markie.
Yeah, and what a significant memory for the vice president to have, getting the last official meeting with the Pope himself. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, I believe he then went on to meet, JD Vance went on to meet with senior Vatican officials, kind of more of an exchanging of opinions there. I know the Pope has been staunchly critical of this Trump White House, specifically when it comes to their positions on immigration. Any word on how those discussions went when it comes to kind of smoothing over relations between the church and the White House yesterday?
Yeah, so as far as we know, between the conversation between the vice president and the Pope himself, we don't know any of the specifics of whether they got into it. It seemed like it was very brief and more so just an exchange for the Easter holiday. But we do know the day before that, on Holy Saturday, Vice President Vance met with some of the officials from the Vatican, and that's where they exchanged some of their views. As you mentioned, the Pope himself has been critical of the Trump administration's handling of deportations. Just before he went into the hospital back in February, he wrote a letter about that as well, sharing some of his thoughts. He said, quote, "What is built on the basis of force and not on the truth about the equal dignity of every human being begins badly and will end badly." So he certainly didn't hold back on his thoughts and feelings of the Trump administration's handling of border policy, as well even previously in the first Trump administration, the Pope spoke out about climate change and as well as the border when he met with President Trump back then, along with members of his family. First Lady Melania Trump was there at the time as well.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.